Hey guys, welcome back to Pre-Production. Thank you so much for listening once again to another episode. Today, I am sitting with a filmmaker that I am so looking forward to talking to. His name is Jason Yu. His debut film, Sleep, is on VOD right now, and you should watch it because it's incredible. It's a fantastic plot, and I don't even really want to spoil it for you because the plot itself is like just so fun, and I really think you guys should go see this movie. It's very scary. It's a horror film, but it's also very personal, and especially in regards to the relationship between the husband and wife in the film, which I thought was lovely. Jason, I am so excited to talk to you today about your first feature. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me, Chris. As I mentioned before, I'm a longtime fan of your YouTube channel and the podcast, so it's a great honor to be here.
Oh man, well, listen, the honor is entirely mine. Trust me. I think that speaking with filmmakers is such a privilege. It's one of my favorite things, honestly, to just talk to fellow filmmakers who really understand the ups and downs of what it's like to try to get a film made when you've got no credits. You know, you're just looking for connections. You're trying to figure out what your place is. Will people reject me? You know, will they accept this? Am I good enough? All of those horrible things that go through your mind every time you try to create anything, but especially on making a first feature. So let's take you all the way back to the beginning, though, Jason. I would really love to know, where did you discover your love of movies, and what was that experience like for you?
I'm quite embarrassed to talk about the beginning because unlike many of my filmmaking peers, I'm quite a late bloomer in film. During my teens, I was just a average moviegoer. I only watched films that were, big Hollywood blockbusters, and my theater going experiences were limited to, I think, once or twice a year. When I went to university, I stumbled upon a creative writing class, which were writing short stories every semester. And besides writing short stories, the professor, he assigned us to watch a lot of films, and I did that out of obligation, just to, not flunk the class. But I really began to enjoy them so much that I would ask for more assignments, which would drive my classmates mad, and would have them hate me. But that's when I think my hobby of watching films began. And briefly after that class, I had to enroll in the military. In Korea, we have a 2-year mandatory military service, which usually takes place in the early 20s. And there I had a lot of time to spend either doing nothing or watching films. I had the option of watching films there. So I think at that time, I watched 2.5 films every day. That was the time slot I was allowed. I think I had 5 hours of free time. So I would end the day with half of a film and begin with the rest of a half the next day. And so for 2 years, I watched them. There was an intense period, for me at least, of catching up on great films. And we were in our 20s, and the barracks I was in, we were just young guys, and we had a very simple way of labeling each other and thinking of each other. And because my seniors and my juniors and my comrades, they thought, this guy likes to watch films, so he's probably going to be a film director. And at that time, I didn't even know what that job really meant. I had a vague idea of film directors, but I never really thought about it. But when they labeled me like that, I was also very simple-minded in that I was persuaded by them that I would be a film director one day. So once I was discharged, I began my journey to becoming one. And I enrolled in the student filmmaking club, and where we made lots of short films by ourselves. They were they weren't technically great because it wasn't a film school. We didn't have a film program. So it was just a bunch of like-minded individuals who were passionate about filmmaking. And then because we weren't a filmmaking university, mostly the people who joined the film club, it was just as a hobby, you know. Most of my peers, their end game was, you know, to graduate and go and get into a prestigious company, a Korean company that they could work for. But I and some few of my peers, we wanted to continue to pursue film, and so when I graduated, I decided to become an AD, an assistant director, and my first project was Okja by director Bong Joon-ho. I did take a year off of university after I was discharged, immediately after I was discharged, and I worked for a Korean film, a commercial Korean film called Secretly and Greatly. It's actually the second film of one of the directors you did review. He made a debut feature called Bedeviled, I think.
Oh, I love Bedeviled.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
that's
love
such a
Bedeviled.
good. Oh, it's
Yeah.
so good. So you worked on that first. How was that experience working with that filmmaker?
I really loved Bedeviled, and that was his first venture into the Korean commercial feature sphere, and it was great. I loved the director, yeah, and just watching him, just perform his craft was a great learning experience. It was incredibly grueling as well, though. Back at that time, the working conditions, I think it was more than 15 years ago, and actually 12 years ago. And the working conditions of like the Korean film industry wasn't that great. We had in the States, I understand that it's a 12-hour maximum shoot, but sometimes in Korea it would go to 36 hours, 48, sometimes over.
Oh my
Yeah,
God. Like this is an audio-based podcast, but to the people listening, my face just exploded off of my body. Like I did have we've had some 14 hours happens. 12 hours is kind of like what everyone says we should do. 14
yeah.
definitely happens sometimes, but 36 is that's way too much, man.
That is way too much. It was probably because at the time the cost of labor was very low, so they had the production companies and studios had the fortune to just shoot and shoot until they get what they want. And I was the lowest, of course, of the whole crew, the cast and crew, so I had to be at my best behavior. But, being sleep deprived for 2 days, that just throws everything out of the window. Everybody gets very aggressive very quickly. And
I'm genuinely amazed by this because this is not something I've ever heard. Not only are you learning about film, you're watching someone who's very talented make movies. You're surrounded probably by great crew and actors, but you're also learning about this side of filmmaking that I think most people don't think about when they dream of making movies, which is I'm tired, I'm sweating, I haven't slept enough, I need some caffeine, something to keep me alive. Like that hard work, blood, sweat, and tears of filmmaking is something that you're also experiencing now on a humongous level.
absolutely. And although I was in I was an adult, a legal adult at that time. For some reason, that I forget. I did have to get my parents' permission to be on that film. To work on that film. I think it was because I had to stop school and I had to get their permission there. And I realized very later on that the only reason my parents allowed me to go on that set was they wanted me to learn how grueling and how torturous being a filmmaker is compared to other office jobs, and that backfired. It blew up in their faces because right after doing that project, my passion for film, I think, grew even bigger.
I love that your parents were very aware of how hard it is to make movies, because over here in the States, I think most people think it's this really easy job that's like a privilege. It is a privilege, but that it's like you don't have to actually work, and that it's all of this free fun that's
Wow.
easy. And that's really, really interesting to hear that your parents were so aware of genuinely how grueling it is to get a film made.
Absolutely. I think most of the Korean population was aware. But it was at that time, it was even more grueling and torturous and very unstable. At that time, times have changed, but I think just 10 years ago, the reputation people, filmmaking crews had wasn't that great. I don't want to speak for everyone, but for me, I had the impression that they thought it was an inferior thing to do
Okay.
compared to a more prestigious office job.
Sure. Does that have something to do with the fact that there's some risk to the longevity of a career in film, that it's like you're not certain how long that'll stay around? You might get one job and then lose another. And is it really about the stability?
I think, 90% would be about stability. Nothing is guaranteed. And I think that's an important factor, not just in Korea, but, everywhere. And you want that longevity, that stability. But, in the film industry, your current project could be your last project any day. And
Yeah.
so that's always the risk you have to take, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, and I think it's why so many filmmakers or actors or writers all say the same thing, which is if you really want to do this, you have to truly love it, because you are going to make so many sacrifices, and you never know, if the sun's going to come up the next day in the film world for you. So first off, I just want to say I'm kind of blown away by how humble you are, man. You have a lot of humility for someone who has already achieved what you have, served 2 years in the military, worked on these grueling film sets, and we haven't even gotten to the fact that you worked with Bong Joon-ho. And
Yeah.
I just want to commend you, because I've spoken to a lot of people in person and on this show who kind of sometimes you get the sense that they're like proud of themselves or whatever. You are genuinely a very humble person, and I just want to commend you for that.
Thank you. I love people who are proud of themselves, and I think they have the right to be.
Yeah.
I am very self-aware of who I am, I think. And for example, director Bong Joon-ho, I think he is a genius, and he deserves to be proud of himself. Although I do think he's very humble as well. But on the other hand, I just perceive myself as a lucky, whatever dude who won the lottery 5 times in a consecutive row. And that's how I describe myself to other filmmakers. Because, like I said, I was a late bloomer in filmmaking. I have still have a lot to learn, a lot of catching up to do. And I just think I got incredibly lucky with this film, at least in Korea. And I hope I could fill the gaps fast so that I can make an even better film the next round.
All filmmakers love the idea of making a better film each time, but
Yeah.
just know that you made a damn good movie. I mean, it's really, really good. So
Wow. Thank you so much.
I mean, I had such a good time with it. I was glued to the screen for the whole runtime, and I thought it was also one of those ideas where I thought, damn, why haven't I thought of that? It's just so like, of course, like that's such a good idea for a horror film, and it's so ripe for so many potentialities. So I'd love to talk to you about what happened after your very grueling set experience. So you eventually get to work with Bong Joon-ho. How did that come about?
That came about just out of great fortune, great timing. I was at the end of my final semester of university, and I was looking for jobs. And one of my crewmates during Secretly and Greatly, they told me that Okja is looking for ADs, and you should probably sign up and apply. And that's exactly what I did. They were looking for ADs with a lot of great experience, and also who were apt in the English language. And luckily for me, the people who usually applied were either very experienced, who were like superstars of the Korean film industry, but had limited English speaking skills, or they were just superstars in the English language, but had little or no film experience. I had some of each. I was right in the middle, I think. My English isn't perfect, but it was sufficient enough to work on that set. And also, I did have one film experience, which was Secretly and Greatly. So I think they didn't really have a hard time hiring me. And I even then I was the lowest of the crew. So
I just want to say your English is fantastic. So if I could speak Korean even 10% as good as you speak English, I'd be very
oh
proud of
no.
myself.
Thank you so much. It gets it's very rusty. I have to think of the Korean first and then sort of speak in English. So there's like a delay, and sometimes I don't know the right word or I forget the words.
Sure. I saw that a lot when I was a kid because my grandparents were born in Germany. And
Oh yeah.
so they moved over to the United States, and they would often, I would see them try to say something in English, but they were working it through German first and then finding the English part of it. So yeah, I mean, when you're trying to get into the industry in any fashion, whether it's being an assistant on set or you're in the camera department or whatever it is you want to do, people are always looking for skills that give them a leg up on the competition. And it's really interesting to think that being multilingual is a skill that does give you a leg up on the competition, that immediately, not only have you had film experience, not only do you love movies and clearly are a good filmmaker, but this extra skill that I think most people don't often think of was an asset for you.
Absolutely. And that's why I think my parents were turned off by the idea of working in the Korean film industry, because they thought, you have this language skill that not many people have, at least at the time. Now everybody, I think, is very fluent in English, but at the time it was more limited, and they thought I would be wasting sort of this great asset that I had in an industry where they have no use for it. And I just thought, who cares? I'm not going anywhere. I'll continue to live in Korea. So it doesn't really matter to me. I want to work in the film, but luck would have it that a project arose where I would have a leg up, a fortuitous leg up for being able to speak English.
Yeah. So what was that like walking onto that set and being surrounded by all of those people making that film?
Looking back, I would say it was a great learning experience, but at that time, it didn't feel like that at all, because, in the end, it's a job that you're paid to do and you have your work carved out for you. Unlike the States, where there's, I think, a first AD and a second AD and the rest are production assistants, we have an assistant directing team who's not like the first and second ADs in the States at all. They're just like the creative assistants for the director. There's usually 5 to 10, and we each have our own departments. Someone does casting, someone does, art and location, someone does VFX, stunt work, etc. And what we usually do is we work as like conduits of information, and we like the insulators for the director. The director, if he has something to say about art, he goes to the ADs first, and we as ADs would go to the production designer and tell them, the director Bong wants this and that, and then we'll get their feedback, and then we'll relay it back to the director. I don't know why the system is so different, but I think it has its ups and downs. And because of that, because Okja was a global, like a multinational production, there was a lot of friction about that system, because some staff members, they wanted to talk to the director directly, and that was the case sometimes. But in Korean way, that didn't really happen that much, and so there was that sort of first time ironing things out sort of thing that happened. And my job was helping with the casting and doing auditions and just a bunch of translating work. I translated for there were two first ADs, the Korean first AD and the US first AD, and the director, etc., etc. And it wasn't as grueling as Secretly and Greatly. 10 years have passed, and a lot of laws, I think, and lots of conditions took place. Where now we had the 12-hour rule in place, and it was much, I think, physically it was less torturous, and but still very intimidating. I was trying my best not to make any mistakes or ruin the film. I did make a lot of mistakes, but none that were big enough to ruin the film, I think. And everybody was gracious. The great thing about being the lowest person on set is that your mistakes are kind of taken into account, and they already calculate that into the project. So I wasn't really chewed out about that a lot, but I did learn a lot because I worked from pre-production to production and even post-production. And even during the promotion phase, I was the translator for director Bong. I was like the Sharon Choi
Sure.
of Okja. Yeah.
Yeah. She became like a little bit of a star during the Parasite promotional tour, didn't she?
She deserves to be.
Yeah.
She was the 2.0 version of myself, she's much better at translating. And that's why probably I had to look for another job.
God, I think this is absolutely fascinating because to hear about how that set works in Korea mostly is really interesting because I can, like you said, I could see why there'd be some benefits to that. But there's certainly a lot of issues I could see arising as well with just needing quick answers, but having to go through so many people to get to those answers, and that could be challenging. But you got to watch these folks work every day, and I imagine you were soaking that in.
Absolutely. I didn't realize it at the time. I had the great fortune of, being next to director Bong for almost every day, just watching him, speak to the cast, or speak to the crew, direct people on set, and even do, sound mixing, talking to his composer. When I did begin my own project, Sleep, I realized for every step of the way, I was consciously and subconsciously mimicking what I learned at that time and, trying to do what he did. I said this in another interview, but because I didn't go to film school, I think my 2.5 years at Okja was probably my film school.
I would say that that's the best film school you can have. There's nothing better than being on a real set and seeing how it actually goes down because it's kind of like jumping into the deep end of a pool and learning how to swim. And it's a blinding, amazing thing that's happening, and you're getting used to it every day. And that's just an incredible school that you had. But clearly you made an impression on director Bong because he's quoted on your poster for Sleep, which is so cool. I can imagine that must be really fun to have that sort of approval from someone like him.
Absolutely. Even before, Okja, director Bong Joon-ho was sort of my filmmaking role model, my favorite director. So, just having him watch the film would have been a great honor. But, having him speak so highly of it was also a dream. It was very unbelievable. But that being said, there is also something to say about the relationship of ADs and the director in Korea, at least. The assistant directors in Korea, it's unlike the States where it's a lifelong gig, lifelong occupation. In Korea, it's a temporary one. Everybody is an aspiring director, and if you're not able to direct your own film in time, you sort of get phased out because of your age and seniority, and so there's like a ticking time thing going down when you're an AD, and the relationship between an AD and a director is more like more of an apprenticeship, as where you learn everything from your master, and then you take that and make your own film. And the mentor, he also helps you sort of guide the way so that you could do a good job for your when you do eventually debut. And one of the things that's tradition almost is that once you finish your first screenplay or any screenplay, you show it to your tutor, your mentor, which in my case was director Bong. So he read it and he told me to do this and that and this and that to really get it made. And that sort of help was also very crucial, I think, in making the film.
How did you feel handing over that screenplay to him? Was every bone in your body just trembling, and was it like a terrifying experience? Here's my work. Please don't, please love it.
um, Not really, because there were two things going on at that time. I was unemployed after I wrote the script, which is usually a case for an ADs. Between project to project, there's a lot of downtime, and because I was running out of money quite fast, I was actually scheduled to meet director Bong because I asked him to meet me in a coffee shop where my plan was to beg him to have me on for his next project because I wanted a job. And while I had him there, I told him I wrote a screenplay as well, and it's not really about approval or disapproval, because I think by default I already knew, in my mind at least, it was bad. So what I wanted were some pointers or some notes, because he gave great notes always, like an hour worth of notes.
Wow, that's great.
That's what I was going for. But my main goal was to beg for a job. But once I met him, he said, forget about the next project. He told me that he really liked the script. It was very well done, and you should direct this. That should be your next thing, which was very, very surreal. Because even as an AD, even while you're aspiring to become a director, you sort of believe that it's a pipe dream almost. You write your screenplays in the hopes that it gets made, but you never feel that it's like a tangible thing, a tangible goal. But so I always thought, I'm going to write this script and then work on another project, as an AD, and maybe something will happen and maybe it won't. But when he said those words, it really made me, put on my directing hat, and it made me realize that this goal wasn't such a pipe dream. It's within arm's reach. And that's when I kind of, took off the ADing hat and tried my hand at directing. It was like a gestalt switch almost, and a defining moment, I think, in the beginning of the project.
Oh, that's honestly heartwarming. I mean, that's so that's so sweet and beautiful, and it's everything that I love to hear. I love to hear these things. It's so nice. So from there, how does it work in Korea with trying to find financing or figuring out how to actually get started?
Well, as I mentioned before, the AD, an aspiring director in Korea, usually has to write their own script. I'm not quite sure how it is in the States, but no studio, I think, is willing to let a person with no experience direct a film, a commercial film at least. It's very rare, so you sort of have to write a good enough script so that you can leverage your way into strong-arming them to let you become a director. So that's what everybody does. But after you think you have a good enough script, what you have to do is you have to go to production companies and look for people who are interested in the script, which is exactly what I did. Another reason people AD is to get these connections, and one of my connections I made in Okja was the producer of Okja. His name is Lewis Kim of Lewis Pictures. He produced that film, and I gave it to him because I remembered back in the day. He said, he gathered the ADs and said, I know that you all want to be directors, so if you have a script, don't go to anybody else. Come to me, and I'll try to make it work for you guys. And I remembered his probably a blank promise, but I remembered that, so I went to him, and luckily for me, he really liked it as well. So he is the one who is responsible to get the financing, not me. I just have to go to the meetings with him. But what you then usually happens is we go to there's 4 to 5 studios in Korea who can finance these films. CJ, they're backed by these multinational conglomerates in Korea, and they're the ones who have a say in whether they would make it or not. So it's his job to, go door to door, meet these people, and see whoever's interested. At that time, because it was the height of COVID, when he was, knocking on doors, nobody was willing to finance any film, and even the films that were being financed, they were withdrawing their funds and scrapping the projects altogether. So it was a very barren land for us. But our producer, he was quite creative in that. I don't think it's that creative in the States, but in Korea, I think it's not that well heard of. He sort of bypassed these traditional companies, studios, and went to smaller venture capital companies, asked them to finance this project. It was a small project, which so they were able, so he was able to do that. And luckily, there were some venture capital companies that were a company that was interested and had faith in the script that said, "Okay, we'll finance this project 100%," and that's how we began filming.
You and I were both looking for financing at the height of COVID for our films at the same time. We were trying to figure out if productions were even going to continue,
Sure.
and what that even meant. I mean, this is when I first started working on the script for Shelby Oaks. Routine meetings through Zoom was not normal. Our pre-production on that movie, our development, I should say, on that movie was mostly through Zoom because of COVID.
That must have been tough, though.
It was, yeah.
Every single film meeting in Zoom, I couldn't imagine that.
Yeah, we were able to finally, once we were ramping up to actually shoot, we were able to do in person, but we all had mask mandates, so we were wearing the mask. Yeah. Okay, so you're going out there, you're finding ways, you're bypassing the system a little bit to get this going, and COVID is going on. In the back of your mind, are you still thinking this is all going to go away?
Yeah, there's a saying in Korea, the Korean film industry. I think it applies to every film industry, but they say it's never over, till it's released. At first they say it's never over until it's greenlit. It's never over until we say crank up, but I think in English it's wrap filming,
yeah.
And then. Yeah, it's never over till it's in the can, and it's never over till it's released. And so I always have the notion that it could go away any day. It happens a lot in I think any film industry in any country where suddenly somebody has a change of heart or whatever, that the film just no longer ceases to become one. And as a debuting filmmaker, I thought I was very vulnerable to those elements. And but that being said, that's not something I can control. So I just try to make every day count. And luckily for me, none of that happened, and I was able to release it. So, I did win the lottery on that part.
Well, lucky for all of us too to get to see it. Because it really is.
Oh no! All right.
We're no, really. I look. I can't tell you, man, how excited I get when I see fresh, original ideas made by new voices, because it just energizes me. It makes me want to go look at a script that I haven't finished yet, that's sitting in my computer, and it gets me excited to work on that. It gets me excited to talk about it.
Thank you so much. That's a great compliment. I know how it feels when you watch something and then you want to rush home and go to write immediately, and just because I know how that feels, I do feel like that's one of the highest compliments. So thank you so much.
Well, you deserve it, sir. Production begins day one. How are you feeling walking onto set?
Very terrified and quite confident. Not confident in myself. They say a debuting director is the least experienced person on set. And so a lot of my filmmaking peers, my seniors, they told me to embrace it. Don't try to act what you're not. Be a director, but don't act like you know everything. And that's what I did. One of my fears going into the film, my biggest fear was that I was worried that the cast and crew, especially the cast, who were veteran actors, who were, I think, legendary, at least in the Korean film industry, they wouldn't respect me. They had countless projects with legendary Korean directors, and now this little, punk of a kid is trying to direct them, no chance. And I that's what I was worried about. Very luckily for me, that wasn't the case at all. They were very kind and they were very respectful. I think that's what makes them pros. And
Yeah.
ultimately, fundamentally, I do think whoever the director is, they are looking for a director, somebody to direct the project. And they knew that would be me, at least on paper. So I think they put their faith in me from day one. And it was great. All those worries kind of washed away. And that was the case for the crew as well. I don't know if it was director Bong who said this, but he said that, or I heard that, there are two types of cast and crew. One are the people who are just full of ideas and full of passion about your project. They're like a furnace, so you sort of have to pour water on them to calm them down. And the other end of the spectrum would be people who aren't passionate about it at all, who are very, how should I say, nonchalant about it. So you kind of have to put fire and coal into the furnace, just have them excited about it. And luckily for me, all of my people, we are tight-knit sort of cast and crew. They were the former. So every day they would come up with ideas, and, everybody would just huddle around figuring out ways to try to make this little story better. And it was my job to say, okay, maybe not that. Okay, I like that, but not that, and all I had to do was just pick and choose the bits that I liked.
That's great. That's so great. And you mentioned having some confidence going in, which I think is actually quite true. If you are a filmmaker who is, having seen your film, I can tell that you obviously prepared extensively for this, clearly. And I think that specific element of knowing your shots, being prepared, really going over it countlessly in your mind's eye, just seeing the movie before you shoot it, all of that can kind of inform you as you walk onto set. And you know what you're doing, you know what you need to get. It's just a matter of, can we and will the people I'm working with see it the same way I do, and kind of be on this same team. So when it comes to preparation, how far did you go? Did you have a full shot list? Did you have everything mapped out? Did you have all of that planned? I mean, you had first AD experience as well, so you had an idea of how the set's going to run.
Yes. I think the confidence actually arose from the fact that I had a great seasoned cast and crew rather than myself. But as for the preparation, you're right. I was very thorough in that. I was very anxious of anything that might not go my way. And I remember when I finished the screenplay and I showed it to director Bong, he said, okay, now off to draw storyboards. And so that's exactly what I did, because when he, finished his screenplay, the next thing he would do was to draw storyboards. And I guess because I learned, I watched him do that, I thought that was the natural thing to do. Only in the halfway through drawing every single shot, my filmmaking peers, my seniors, figured out I was doing that, and they thought I was quite crazy, because the film wasn't even greenlit at that time. It wasn't even going around in production, companies, and they said, you should do this when you get some money, when you get money for the project. Now you're just wasting your time. You should probably either revise the script or write a new one in the hopes that somebody might like it and light it. But when I completed the storyboards, that's when the film was greenlit, and I did get to use them in the end.
That's great.
Yeah, and I think just showing the financiers this fat ring binder of storyboards, that it did give them confidence that, I wasn't lazy, and I was doing my work, and I did have faith in the project. And I was very faithful to I wanted to draw every single shot of the storyboards just so that I have an idea of what to expect on set. There are a lot of directors who say you prepare the storyboards, but on set, I throw them away and just let whatever inspiration comes. They're just for backup. But for me, they were my everything. I adhered to the storyboard as much as I could, to the extent that it wasn't that healthy in the beginning. We did have to find a middle ground with at least the actors, which was also a learning experience. The actors, they wanted to have some freedom, they wanted to go through it, rehearse the whole thing, maybe have a master once in a while where they can just go through the whole thing and maybe adjust the shots to their liking. But me just observing director Bong, what he usually does is, for this part of the scene, he only shoots one way. And there's never an instance where he goes through the whole scene with each shot. So it's very fragmented. And that's what I thought, just what everybody does. But it wasn't. The people who do that are geniuses who have a clear vision of what they want. And I soon found out that I'm not a genius at all. So he said, maybe in the editing booth, if you don't want to feel depressed, you should get some more coverage. And because you can't really shake off what you learned that quickly, there weren't many instances where I did shoot a lot of coverage, but I did understand what the actors wanted. They wanted what's in the script is a script, the storyboards are the storyboards, but the acting and shooting is a whole different beast. So they wanted to just figure that out among themselves before we decide to just strictly follow the storyboard. So there were those instances where we had to kind of meet in the middle. I'm not sure if I'm explaining myself.
No, you're explaining yourself perfectly. I mean, I really understand it, because as a director, you see the film playing in your head, and you probably see the edits, you see the cuts, you see exactly the angle changes. And your actors probably want to feel it out a little more. They want to kind of, go through it and get it out a little bit. And I went through a similar thing on the first few days of my movie too, where you go in and you know what you want. I also storyboarded the movie. We had a very extensive shot list for everything, camera movement, and we had top-down diagrams of the locations where we would be like, okay, the people will go to the door and now they'll be at the bed and they'll be here. And all of that is incredibly valuable. You mentioned some other filmmakers who throw that out the window. I do not. I am very like, no, that's the map. That is the map to the movie, and I have to follow the map. But there were moments on set where we'd do a close-up, and I'm like, hey, we got it. That's great. Let's move on. And an actor would be like, oh, like, wait, I kind of wanted to like do the rest. And I'm like, well, okay. And that's sometimes what happened. We would say, okay, go ahead. And in my head, I'm thinking, I'm probably not going to use this, but the actor is feeling comfortable and they're getting to say it, and they're going to give a better performance because they're being heard by the director. And at the same time, there were times in the edit where I looked and went, oh, I am going to use some of that. They were right. I was wrong. Like that happens too.
Wow, it feels like you're just talking about what happened to my set. It's exactly like that. Absolutely. A great thing I think you learn during your time as an AD are those little things that you think aren't really related to directing, but is crucial to directing, which is how to ask for another shot, maybe, or how to, which in your student film days, it's not very difficult, right? You go until you like it, but in the professional film set, everybody's a professional. There are a lot of quote unquote egos at play, and you really have to, do this delicate dance sort of in asking for certain things, and one thing you asked how was the experience on the first day of set. I remember being very conscious of the limited time and money we had. And I thought it was my job sort of to kind of get what we needed quickly. We moved on to the next shots very quickly.
Yeah.
I was satisfied. The veteran actor Lee Sung-gyun, the late Lee Sung-gyun, he saw me, being sort of overly worried about the time and the money, and he said, that's not your job. Take as much time as you need. Get everything you need. Even if it's 98% what you think it is, scrap it and go for the 100. And even if you go over time, there's always something figures itself out. So that's not your job. Just do your job. And that really, I think, was an eye-opening piece of wisdom. It was then on out that I was solely focused on, what was inside the screen rather than all the exterior, the elements at play, which, the producers handled very well. So it was a true piece of wisdom.
Absolutely. That's something that I think is really valuable too, is just because there's going to be a lot of people who whisper in your ear about overtime or, we're spending too much money. We have to wrap early, whatever. And sometimes, it's like, I didn't get it. This isn't the shot. That's not right. We got to go again. And it's tough. I had, on my film, I had mostly very good veteran indie actors who've worked on tons of movies, but I did have one day with Keith David, who's a legendary actor, John Carpenter's The Thing and all these incredible movies. And I had one day with him and I was just terrified to give him direction because, like you said, I'm the least experienced person there. It's the first time I'm trying this for real. And I had just one note for that man because, of course, he was excellent. But I had one note and I gave it to him and he took it very well. And he just, he recalibrated and did it and it was perfect. And I realized then it's like, this is also why you're such a professional, Mr. David, because you can look at someone like me who's essentially a small boy in his eyes and just take the note and apply it without even thinking about it. And it was quite humbling, actually.
Absolutely. That's the experience I went through as well. And it's actually quite surprising at first when they do take a direction. You wouldn't, it's not something, it's obviously what you require, but I don't know, there's this first time where you do see them recalibrate for your directions and you realize, okay, this is pretty cool.
Yeah. They're listening to me for once.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know what you mean, man. So your film is out now. I think that your journey to get it made is so cool. Just the fact that you didn't immediately know that when you were young. You said it was embarrassing, but I disagree, man. I mean, like, I think everyone comes into whatever they're going to be as a filmmaker. They figure that out when they figure it out. I used to watch movies when I was a little boy. I didn't even really comprehend that they were made by people. I just kind of thought they were this amazing, magical thing that generated on a screen. And I didn't, I have 2 3-year-old twin boys right now. They're really getting into movies. Earlier today, they were watching Super Mario Brothers. I'm looking at them and I'm seeing sort of the way that I used to think about movies when I was little. They're just genuinely in awe of the fact that it exists. They're just staring at it like, what is this amazing world? And it took me a while to realize, people come together and make these. There's people who work on these. There are jobs. These are made by human beings. So I think it's cool. And honestly, I mean, having seen your first film, you clearly know what you're doing, but also you took those 2 years in the military where you watched 2 hours and 2.5 movies a day, which I think is really funny, by the way, because I do this. I try to watch a movie a day and occasionally the day is ending and I'm like, well, I'm halfway through this movie. I'll just pause and I'll pick it up tomorrow. But that combined with being able to work on film sets as a first AD is such an incredible film school for you. And it's only resulted in clearly a great filmmaker. And I cannot wait to see what else you do.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
So
congratulations on the twins, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited about having my own children one day and just sort of breaking in early film education, something that I never had, and see how that's like.
That is exactly what I'm doing with them because
Yeah.
yeah, my parents didn't. I mean, movies were kind of a fun thing, but there was no expectation that I would ever make them. It was a kind of a taboo thing for the way I was raised, and so I love being able to give them that freedom to understand how it works and sort of discover those things. And I'll say also, there's without spoiling anything, there's some elements in your film that do include a young infant. And
Yeah.
the terror that I was feeling during some of those scenes, having young children of my own,
Yeah.
yeah, excellent job with that.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so guys, check out Sleep. It's on VOD right now. It's available all over the place. Rent this movie, buy this movie, support this movie. It's fantastic. This filmmaker, Jason Yu, is going places for sure. I cannot wait to see what his next films are. Is there anything you're working on right now or anything that you'd like to do in the future?
My biggest, I guess, wish would be to be able to make my second film. I am working on two projects simultaneously. I do think I'll have to choose a lane soon, but the first one would be a similar, horror thriller sort of genre in the vein of Sleep, but slightly bigger in scale. Another one would be, I think I have to preface this by saying that my favorite genre as a film spectator is romantic comedies. And I do wish to make my own version of a romantic
Oh,
comedy.
that's so good.
But I guess, but for that project, there's the extra hurdle of getting, the producers excited, as excited as I am about it. But we just have to wait and see which project comes up first.
Well, I would love to see either of those movies from you. Thank you so much, sir, for taking the time to talk to me.
Thank you for inviting me, Chris. It's a great honor and a great joy.